with a father who did have daughters that were born who were Siamese twins. David Hansen, he's the father of Lisa and Elise Hansen. They were twins joined at the head. They were separated in 1979, and they are now 8 years old. Mr. Hansen,
I have their picture.
You have their picture, yeah?
I have a clipping of their picture.
Mr. Hansen, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, you can hear me.
Yeah.
How did you react when the doctors told you that your wife had given birth to what we call Siamese twins?
Well, my first thoughts were I didn't know what to expect or to even comprehend what had happened. I had no idea what they looked like or what their chances of survival were. And then you start feeling the feelings of guilt. What did I do that caused all this? That's basically the thoughts I had at first.
You decided to have them separated. I think they were 2 years old, right?
They were 19 months old.
19 months, okay. What did the doctors tell you about this operation in terms of the dangers involved and what kinds of pressures it might put on their future lives?
Okay, well, first of all, when they were first separated, or when they were first born, they didn't know if they would even live throughout the night. And then as time went on, they were going to try for a separation, and then as they started to do different testing, they didn't think it was even possible for either one or both of them to make it through a separation. And then at one time period, they even thought of possibly a sacrifice, which made it really hard to even think of such a thing.
You mean a sacrifice? They told you that one of them would live and one would die?
There was a possibility that they would have to make a sacrifice to save one. And so, and then finally the doctor says that if they ever did make that decision, they'd make it from a medical standpoint rather than having us do it. And then as time went on, they started to come up with new techniques and new procedures to where they had several operations before the final separation. In fact, they were under general anesthesia about 13 times by the time they were separated.
How difficult was it for you to make that decision?
They were our first children, and Pat and I had only been married 9 months when we had them, me and my wife, and it made it easier because they were our first children. We could donate our whole life to helping them. It made it far easier with them being our first children.
Did the doctors give you...
As a result, our marriage has become very strong, and we really rely on each other real heavy.
Did the doctors give you any kind of odds in terms of what their chances were of survival, either staying joined or being separate?
They never did give us, you know, they told us that they weren't separated, that possibly they would have some brain damage eventually because there was, the brains would actually push against each other as they grew, and it would act as a tumor on each other, and it would eventually cause some form of retardation. And then with the separation, they never really gave us odds, but I heard once where there was like a 30% chance of one of them making it and a 5% chance of both of them making it.
When you made the decision to have them separated, were you sure that it was the right decision?
Well, the only thing we went by is if we were in their shoes, what would we want to happen? You know, if I was in their shoes and my father had to make that decision, I think I would want him to try it so that, you know, I could somewhat have a chance for a normal life. And so that's what we kind of based our feelings on. I felt real good about it until every so often somebody would come up and say, well, aren't you scared? Do you think you're really doing what's right? And then Pat, my wife and I are very religious. We're LDS or Mormons. And so we relied real heavy on prayer to help us through it. How are Lisa and Elise today? They're doing fine. They're both in school. They're in first grade. And Elisa is about 1.5 years behind most kids because of all the time she's in the hospital. Lisa's about the same as far as on the intellectual scale. Physically, she has a lot more problems. She starts to regress and then starts to progress and then has a regression to where she can hardly sit up, and she's still not unable to walk. But we're hoping that down the road she'll be able to. Okay, we'd like to thank you for joining us today and wish you all the best in the future. Thank you, Mr. Hansen. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, though, we're going to be asking some questions about this phenomenon. How common is it? Why does it happen? And probably most interesting of all, why do we call them Siamese twins?
What does it have to do with Siam? We'll be right back with some of the answers to these questions about twins who are joined together. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Good morning. Dr. Templeton, let me begin with you. We have been using the term Siamese twins. The medical term conjoined twins, that's what it is?
That's right.
Why do we say Siamese twins? Where did that come from?
That came from the Bunker twins back in the 1800s. They were actually Chinese, but they were born in Siam. And when they came to this country, they eventually became a part of P.T. Barnum's circus. And he took them around first the country and eventually the world, introducing them as the Siamese twins.
These two men, they were male twins, right?
That's correct.
They did get married and have children?
Yes, after they had their first successful tour with P.T. Barnum, they decided to retire and lead a normal life, and got a farm in North Carolina, and one of them eventually fell in love with a daughter of a Quaker family, but they felt they ought to have two marriages. So I don't quite know how they did it, but they sort of contrived to have another sister of the same Quaker family fall in love with the other twin. Then they went to the father, who refused, not surprisingly, and eventually the brothers, without the sisters knowing it, came to Philadelphia to try and get separated. And the sisters found out about it and followed them on the next boat and caught them the night before surgery and begged them not to do it because they were afraid they would die, and they'd rather marry two healthy men.
So Yvonne and Yvette, see, there is hope.
Yeah.
Maybe you should look for brothers.
I know.
Maybe some of the Jackson brothers or something like that, huh?
I know.
Dr. Templeton, what are the places that Siamese twins can be joined?
Just about any kind of conjunction you can think of has probably happened in the story of mankind. Basically, there are three groups. There are those that are joined in some form at the top, there are those that are joined in some form at the bottom or in the rump area, and there are those that are joined in the central torso, usually in the mid portion of the chest.
Dr. Sargent, let me ask you, children, I know you have not worked with specifically conjoined or Siamese twins, but children who do get the special attention of society because of a medical condition, how does that affect their development usually?
It's a tremendous stress for the child and for his family. There's the pain of the operations, there's the worry about the child's future, there's the concern of other people in the child's life that that child looks different and acts different, so that there's a tremendous amount of concern and stress that goes on in the family as a result of that child being different.
Do parents ever make common mistakes about treating those children?
Sure. They make the common difficulty that parents have is that they're sad that their child is different, and they're sad themselves that their child has to undergo the kind of pain that the operations bring or that any kind of discrimination might bring. And because of that sadness, and because of their wish that the child not be in that situation, parents can find themselves missing other important aspects of the child's development,
Patricia,
like a sense of humor.
Obviously, these guys have a great sense of humor. Patricia, did you find any sadness in your home?
No, none. I think the twins made our family better. I think Yvonne and Yvette made our family better. As adults and as children, we're able to deal with people. We were taught never to make fun of people, and we're more, my sisters and brothers, we're more compassionate towards everybody. You know, we're just a compassionate family. We love everybody. Everybody we know, we kiss them, and we were brought up that way. And I think basically they did this. We could never be this way if it wasn't for Yvonne and Yvette.
They made the family more compassionate.
They made us more compassionate.
Yvonne and Yvette, what role did your mother have in raising you and making you so well adjusted to what is basically a unique lifestyle?
She didn't treat us different.
She didn't treat you differently. And I guess you're thankful for that.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have a telephone call right now. Good morning, you're on the air. This is Richard.
Hi, I noticed that, like, when one would say something, the other one says the same thing shortly after, and I was wondering if they have the same brain.
Do they have the same brain? Doctor?
It's possible that there is some conjunction of the brain. At the time that they were born, they didn't have some of the sophisticated tests they have, such as CAT scans. Really, the two issues when it comes to separation is there some conjunction of brain, because that happens in other parts of the body, such as the liver and the heart. And do they share a common central circulation?
If they had the same brain, though, would they have the same thoughts? Wouldn't they have the same dreams? Wouldn't they I mean, they would think spontaneously together. Wouldn't that be the case or not?
No, not necessarily. Actually, the same brain's not the best way of looking at it. It's a fused portion of the brain.
It's possible, but you're saying you don't know exactly.
That's right. You would have to do very sophisticated medical tests to see whether the brain tissue is fused or not.
Is there actually an exchange of their blood?
Yes, there's definitely. Even the Bunker twins that you saw the picture of before had a very narrow union, and I would assume that they always had the same blood count, the same blood chemistries if you were to been able to test them at that time.
Okay, we do have a lot of questions out here in the audience. Can I see those questions, please? Back here. Sir, would you stand up, please? Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any trouble sleeping? Like, if one rolls over, you might wake up the other one?
Yvonne and Yvette, sometimes it's hard for married couples. It takes them 20 years to get to the point where they can sleep together comfortably. And one person snoring does not bug them, or they're rustling in the middle of the night. You guys have slept together all your lives. Do you find that to be a problem ever?
No.
Do you get tired at the same? What if somebody wants to stay up and watch The Late Show or Johnny Carson?
Yeah, it happens. It happens. It happens.
That happens.
Yeah.
Luckily, we have a remote-controlled TV, so I end up cutting off the TV.
Can one of you go to sleep while the other one stays awake?
Yeah.
Yes, that can happen. Okay. Any other questions out here in the audience? Yes, would you stand up, please?
Yes, I would like to know how they exactly are they joined at the head?
How are they joined? How does that enjoinment take place?
They're really joined at what you think of as the apex, the central portion, as you can see. And that really is about the most complex form of conjunction you can have.
What causes it?
Well, the first thing is that they're identical twins. And the potential for being identical twins is the same from one ethnic group to another all over the world. And there, in the formation of an identical twin happens early after the egg is fertilized. After 13 days after an egg is fertilized and is growing, it then divides. It usually doesn't divide completely, and then you get a conjoined twin.
So we have, this morning, talked about a case where there were what we call Siamese twins in the Chinese ethnic background. We have black Siamese twins, and certainly we had somebody who was a Mormon call this morning. Every ethnic group, every racial group has the potential for having this sort of condition to take place.
Yes, and I'm sure it's happened.
How common is it?
I would say that we used to say that 1 out of 250,000 births gave the potential for conjoined twins. That's perhaps down to 1 out of 50 or 1 out of 100,000 if you include those that get reported. The reporting is much better now so that people are aware of twins that are born and then die. Roughly 50% of the ones that are born are so complex that they don't survive the period just before or just after birth.
We do have a telephone call right now. Good morning, you're on the air. This is Richard.
Good morning. I'd like to make a comment to Yvonne and Yvette.
Sure.
I saw them when I was about 9 years old as a child, and it's something that I'll never forget until they don't have to marry a movie star because they're still stars with me.
You saw them as gospel singers?
As gospel singers at the Met Theater here.
Yeah, I remember the Met Theater.
Still here? Is it still here?
Yeah. Well, how old were you guys when you were singing?
I must have started about, I have no idea, about nine, I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you, do you still sing? Can you give us
No.
You can't, so you couldn't give us a line or two, huh?
I won't sing.
No, you won't do it now. Okay, you're shy
Maybe another
together.
time.
Maybe another time.
That's a trait they share now. Would you stand up, please?
I would like to know, how do you still support yourself after being gospel singers?
Government fund.
Support, like, what would you enjoy to do as an employee?
Oh, as we were employed?
Oh, I didn't even hear the question.
Would you like to get a job and...
Oh, yes, I love a
yes.
job.
I love the job.
I would like to keep busy. It's sitting around. It just bored me to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes you fat, too, y'all.
I wouldn't want the secretary-type job.
Okay, we're going to take a break right now, but let me leave you with something else that is a bit different. We'll be talking about in the next segment of the show. According to published reports, on August 7th, a baby was born in China with 2 heads and 1 body. This is a picture right here. We brought it up. Doctors say that they have different features on each head, that both have different reactions to the world, and they are feeding the baby through both mouths. Incredibly, they say that there are 2 brains controlling the actions of 1 body. We'll be talking a little bit about this very extraordinary phenomenon in just a moment when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to People Are Talking. This morning we are discussing the medical phenomenon known as Siamese twins amongst us, or conjoined twins. Just before the break, we were talking about a baby that was born in China. It has one body, two heads. According to the reports, it has one heart, it has the usual number of organs, and the doctors are really sort of baffled as to how one body can receive messages from two heads with two separate brains. What happens when they have conflicting messages that they're sending to the body? But Dr. Templeton, you've told me that this is not the first time in recorded history that this has been observed.
That's right. There's a very famous set of twins, probably one of the earliest that have some reasonable documentation as we understand history. In 1100 in England, in Biddenden, England, there were a set of twins that looked pretty much exactly like the picture that you showed. They were reported to have two heads and two necks, one pair of arms, one body, one pair of legs. They lived to be about 34 years of age before they died of an unknown cause. And today, the fact of their existence is still commemorated each year in Biddenden, England, with a little festival in which they make a cookie that has the impression of those two twins on it, and they distribute those cookies.
How can that be medically, biologically? How can two separate brains send messages to one body? Wouldn't there be a great sort of nervous confusion?
Yes, I would think there would be, but I think that it remains to be seen what will happen with the set from China. Now that they're born in the era that we live, I think that we'll learn a lot of very valuable information about coordination of nervous impulses that, of course, in 1100 they couldn't analyze.
At this point, science has no medical answer as to how this takes place.
No, I would say they're the first opportunity to understand that interaction.
I don't know.
What about boyfriends? I want to know about boyfriends.
What?
Do you have a boyfriend?
Oh, no.
Not at this point.
Uh-uh.
Well, maybe you'll get one from this show today. If there's one out there, call up. Maybe there'll be two brothers, that will call up today. Would you stand up, please? Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to know if they did separate the head, which side of the brain would be affected? Would it be the part that's intellectual or the part that has a lot to do with the activities?
When you do separate a child, does it take one part of the brain from one and one part from the other?
Yeah, it depends completely on where they're conjoined. The most favorable separation are those that are joined in the front. People have operations or injuries to the frontal part of the brain, and they seem to be normal. We still don't know what the frontal part of the brain contributes. Up around the side and to the top represents more major compromises of sensation and motor function. So I would think that they would have it would be very difficult to separate them without injuring the motor or sensory structures for their brains.
Okay, question back here.
I would like to know if it's hereditary to their children. If they ever have children, how much would a chance would it be?
What is really hereditary is just the tendency to have identical twins. They have nieces that are...
That are identical, and, we
That's
have
right.
there are three sets in them.
And in the Morgan twins, there were 4 pairs of conjoined twins within first cousin, second cousin relationships.
Okay, we do have a telephone call right now. Perhaps you might have heard recently there was a case of Siamese twins in Toronto in Canada, and their condition was especially difficult to deal with because they were two boys joined at the genitals, and there was a lot of concern that if they separated these two children, one would have to surgically be made a female, and one, perhaps if they could, to save his organs, he could live life as a male. Joining us right now is the doctor who helped work on that operation. He's Dr. Robert Filler. He's chief of surgery at Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children. This recent operation, they were called the Ram-Kalaman twins from Trinidad. Ram-Kalawan twins from Trinidad. Dr. Filler, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell us how exactly were they joined and what special problems this created for these twins?
Well, the twins were joined. They were sort of partially side to side and partially face to face, and they were joined from the lower chest through the entire abdomen down in the pelvis. And they had fusion of the male genitals.
What special problems did this sort of condition create?
Well, there were several problems. They shared a liver, the intestinal tract, the urinary tract, which crossed over from one twin to the other, and they had fusion of the penis. They had a pelvis that was joined, and fortunately they did have 4 legs. And after separating the various structures that were joined to one another, the defect in the abdominal wall and pelvis that was the effect of separation was probably the largest problem that we had.
The team that worked on this, 56 people on the surgical team. It was a 23-hour operation.
Right.
That's an incredible operation to coordinate.
Well, you can imagine that some of these unions are very, very complex, and they require the help of many different kinds of surgical specialists to do it. And once you have one, then each one needs an assistant. And if you have two teams, then for each specialist, you're talking about 4 doctors. Then there's the anesthesia team that, to go a period of time like that, you can't have 1 or 2 anesthetists around. They need a team of their own, the nurses, and so on. And it does require a lot of coordination and rehearsals. We had 3 rehearsals prior to doing this operation, but we were also fortunate in that just a year ago we had almost a similar type situation, and everyone on our team already had really had experience with the prior set just 1 year ago.
One of the problems here, though, was, and it's probably one thing that gathered maybe to some degree sensationalistic publicity, was the fact that they were joined at the genitals, and that there was concern that one child might surgically have to be made a female, the other might be made a male.
Right. We were very fortunate in this case that we could complete the separation and have 2 males. A year ago, that was not possible, and we had to have 1 male and 1 female.
Will these children be able to grow up and have normal lives as we view normal?
The current ones, yes.
They will?
Right.
Okay, well, congratulations on your success, and thank you for joining us this morning on People Are Talking.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. We have more questions out here in the audience. Yes, would you stand up, please? Another question.
Yes, I would like to know, did y'all have stress and emotional problems, and did y'all seek help, and did that help make y'all be happy now?
Yvonne Yvette, did you ever feel that you were going through stress? I mean, everybody, adolescence is a stressful time for everyone, no matter what you go through. Did you ever feel like you would want to go see a psychiatrist?
Never thought about it.
You never thought about it. And if you never thought about it, you probably don't need it. There was a time, and I do have to bring this up, when you were in the circus. Now, this was quite a long time ago. And the world has certainly changed a lot in 36 years or in 33 or 34 years. And a lot of the things that we saw in circuses and the way that we looked at people back then, that has changed as well. How do you feel? I know you're too young to remember that. But how do you feel about the experience of the circus people, the circus experience, that takes people with unique medical conditions and creates an oddity around them and sort of panders to the exploitation of seeing someone, not in terms of being a human being, but in terms of being a freak? How do you feel about that now?
Let me see. Never even thought of it. Let me see.
You don't even think about it now?
No.
Patricia, have you thought about it?
No, I did. When they were in the circus, I was with them because, you know, we're close in age, and we just had a good time. You know, that was our living, and that's what we had to do to survive as a family. So we just took it as that, you know, and we had a lot of friends. We made a lot of friends in those days, and then after we completed, put this life behind us, it was just behind us. We never thought about it. It never took any, made any psychological effect on any of us.
Okay, and certainly that was a different era and a different time.
Right, it was a different time.
We're going to take a break right now. We'll be right all the time we have today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us. I'd like to thank all of you here and the studio audience. I think Yvonne and Yvette, you've made a lot of new friends in the Delaware Valley. You're going to have quite a social life whenever you come up here, and there are a lot of people who remember you from your gospel singing days up here. Thank you for joining.